Hey 302, I'm Jackie Ferris. This week we're pressing all of the buttons at the Delaware State Police Museum and learning about their fascinating history. You're going a little too slow for the 302. The Delaware State Police are coming up on a pretty big birthday, and what way to celebrate and honor the men and women of the Delaware State Police than a visit to the Delaware State Police Museum. I'm joined now to talk about all of this by Captain Jay Sapp and Corporal Adam Jewell. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Now, when you come to the museum, the first thing and the most important thing in the museum as part of the mission and the purpose of the museum is to honor the fallen. You have a whole wall of 23 state police officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty. Can you talk to us a little bit about the Wall of Memoriam?
So the honor wall, if you will, is not unique to the museum. Every troop and every facility we have and occupy throughout the state has something very similar to that. So to your point, ma'am, yes, it's very near and dear to our hearts that we always keep those who made the ultimate sacrifice kind of at the forefront of everything we do. So yes, throughout our history, we've lost 23 troopers, God willing. We'll get through the rest of our careers without having to lose any others. Corporal Jewell and I both serve on our Honor Guard team, and God forbid we should lose someone else, it would fall to us to handle those burial services. So we're hoping not to have to do that.
It's really fitting that when you come, you pass their faces and you see there's a little story underneath them, and you pass the Trooper's Pledge, and then the history begins as part of the tour. So the first thing you see are the ordinances, or in layman's term, the firearms that you guys have used over the course of history. Talk to me a little bit about how that has changed and what people will see whenever they look into that case.
Absolutely. So, I mean, over the years, since the 20s, we've used a variety of different firearms and defense systems and whatnot. So with technology growing and advancing, we adapt and upgrade our firearms and things. So in my career thus far, we just transitioned to a new handgun, so we have to add our old handgun to that display. But over the years, we've used different shotguns, rifles, and handguns, which the museum's been lucky enough to acquire and show on that wall behind you.
It's very well documented. The thing that you pointed out before the show when we were walking through that really struck me was the hat with the bullet hole. Who's going to tell me about that? Well, again,
you know, Jewell and I both serve as board members on the museum board of directors. And one of the struggles in any museum, I would imagine, is trying to find relevant articles to display. And in that instance, the family of that trooper held on to that campaign hat for years and years and years, and had it ready to go for display. So yes, there's a signage along with that hat that tells the story of how that trooper was essentially shot through the hat while on patrol. Unfortunately, the bullet just struck the hat and not him. So. Yes, ma'am.
Now, as you look around, you talk about artifacts. There are plenty of artifacts here, especially when it comes to criminal investigation. There's a whole wall, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it. It starts with fingerprinting and moves its way forward. What do you, on that wall, what do you see as the most fascinating thing to you?
Fascinating. I'm easily fascinated, so that's not hard. I'll put it this way. I'm in my 26th year with the state police, and I can tell you that as a new trooper, I didn't have a full appreciation of everything that this organization does on a daily basis to keep the citizens of Delaware safe. The museum really encompasses not just what the sworn troopers do, but also what our civilian population does. Present day, we have just over 700 sworn Delaware State troopers that serve the state, and another 300 or so civilians. much of the work that you see documented here is done by those civilians. So the fingerprinting and the cataloging of those fingerprints, which solve countless crimes, is all done by civilians. And you don't really appreciate that as a young trooper necessarily, because you have a very narrow focus. The longer you're around, like myself, you come to appreciate those things. So we try to capture all of that here.
Now, I thought you were going to say something about the radar detector. Corporal Jewell, you must be pretty relieved that you don't have to use that huge contraption.
Years ago, yes, they were a lot bigger, I'm sure a lot heavier. The radars installed in our trucks today are much smaller and more accurate. So it's one thing that we're certified on when we attend the academy next door. As Captain mentioned to you earlier, I mean, we're a full service agency. What that means is, I tell everybody, we handle everything from barking dog complaints all the way up to homicides and everything in between. But between handling a criminal investigation, we are expected to go out there and enforce traffic violations, which is one time when we would use our radars.
Sure, sure. And there's also a breathalyzer, an old breathalyzer, and a polygraph, which a lot of people have not seen up close. And this is a great opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. So you mentioned the breathalyzer. So with any driving while intoxicated investigation, there's some roadside tests that take place. But if there's enough probable cause to bring that driver back to our troop, they would then undergo a portable breath test, or excuse me, a breathalyzer machine, which would give an accurate reading of their blood alcohol content, and possibly lead to a DOI arrest. With the polygraph machine, I currently serve as a full-time trooper recruiter. So what that means is I help run our hiring processes, trying to look for that next wave of new troopers. And a lot of people don't realize, but we polygraph all of our applicants who make it to that stage, just to ensure that we're getting the highest caliber of person into this uniform.
Excellent. And when we return, we're going to talk about more of the cool exhibits that you can see here at the Delaware State Police Museum. We'll be right back.
I'm Chris. Get your thrills on the 302.
Welcome back. We're at the Delaware State Police Museum talking about the exhibits that you and your family can come down and check out. Now, Captain Sapp, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the roll call. That's a virtual thing that you can come in and hands-on get information about a state police officer from past or present.
Yes, ma'am. Well, essentially past. So what happens is anytime a member of the division retires, Miss Anderson, who is the director of the museum, she dialogues with Human Resources. They send over their information and she uploads it into this roll call system. So the neat thing is you can come in here and search for the name of any retired Delaware trooper, see their photo, potentially their class photo from when they first got hired, and then it has some biography information on them. So it's a nice way to kind of keep that memory alive, even for those who are no longer with us.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the vehicles and the museums. A lot of people are into badges and buttons and just the style that was worn back in the day, and the vehicles. So let's start with the vehicles that you have. You have several police cars here. Tell me a little bit about what we're seeing.
I'd love to, but he's the car guy, so I'm going to let him do that.
Absolutely. So we're fortunate to have these vehicles in our museum here. Ranging from old Fords to a 90s Crown Victoria, Plymouth Fury. We have old Trooper Dan, which is a Volkswagen, a community outreach tool that we've used over the years in a different room. So we house them here within the museum for folks to come and take a look at, remind them of maybe what cruised the highways when they were growing up.
And there's also a motorcycle and a helicopter, right?
Yes, we have a motorcycle, a helicopter, which just kind of helps advertise all the different career routes that we can take with the Delaware State Police, all housed here at the museum.
So as far as the helicopter goes, the one that's outside, tell me a little bit about that one.
Sure, so that's actually a replica from our first helicopter that we had as an agency. But we do have a full-time aviation unit to where troopers are certified as pilots and or trooper medics. and they serve different missions each and every day throughout the state. A lot of medical calls, transporting people who are badly injured in car crashes and things like that, getting them to the hospitals a lot faster. So you can learn about those units while you're here at the museum as well.
Now, when we go through the museum, we can see the different uniforms, and they've really had a metamorphosis over the years. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes, ma'am. Well, in our first uniform permutation that came about in the 20s, they incorporated as a shoulder patch. It's a simple winged wheel, which police agencies throughout the country utilize, which is synonymous with the highway patrol. And then in the 1930s, we designed a diamond-shaped patch that is demonstrated, or displayed rather, on that mannequin there. And on that patch, what you see is pretty neat. You see a blue hen, which is the state's bird, and then 3 little baby chicks. And as the story goes, the troopers that designed that patch did it to represent the 3 counties of Delaware and the 3 chicks, with the blue hen being the state police as the protector of those chicks. It's kind of neat, right?
That is neat.
And so from there we went to a simple yellow and blue diamond patch, and then in 1956 essentially went to this present day patch, which displays the state's coat of arms. So law enforcement entities, much like service, military service organizations, are very proud of their uniforms and those things that represent their agency, and we are as well.
You guys have done a really good job in terms of the timelines, not only of criminal investigation and of the state police coming up on a 100th anniversary, but also in the vehicles and the uniforms. So there's just so much history. It's really surprising when you come in. I can't think of anything that you left out.
We're proud of it. I mean, I would like to say that the Delaware State Police, have arguably one of the best, biggest, and nicest police museums in the country. It's all self-funded from our active and retired troopers, donations from our active and retired troopers, and we're definitely proud of the contents inside.
Now, some of the exhibits that you're working on, you have a couple of things that you're working on coming up once we come out of COVID in terms of exhibits. Can you talk to me a little bit about those?
Yes, ma'am. Well, Colonel James Ford is one of our board members, a former colonel, superintendent of the state police. And he kind of spearheaded a recent initiative that we've tried to push pretty aggressively through the COVID pandemic while we are essentially shut down, and that is to update a display that once memorialized what was called the Pig Lady murders. Well, that display was pretty dated and had been in place since 1997. So with the help of Corporal Jewell and others, we leveraged Wilmington University's internship program, brought in a young lady named Ashley Cox from Wilmington University who spearheaded the research. And we're hopeful that in the very near future we're going to open up a brand new display highlighting the Lambertson murder case from 1979. She did a phenomenal job and went out and actually interviewed some of the retired troopers that were part of that case. So we've got a couple other side projects we're working on, and we're hopeful that we'll have those up and running about the time we open.
Well, it sounds very exciting. So when we come back, we're going to learn more about the Delaware State Police Museum. Stay with us.
This is Mark Fields of the Grand Opera House, and we're in the spotlight with 302.
Welcome back. We're at the Delaware State Police Museum. Now, gentlemen, a lot of times when people think of the state police, they think of lights and sirens. And you have lights and sirens here that date back to, I would imagine, some of the first lights and sirens. So let's talk a little bit about those two tools that the state police have used.
Absolutely. So obviously, emergency lights and sirens have come a long way over the years. We were lucky enough to receive a large donation of old emergency vehicle lighting, which is displayed on our back wall here at the museum. So you can come in and see lights and sirens that were used back in the 50s and probably before that. Now today, everything is obviously upgraded to LED lights and stuff. You can see them from a lot further away. It's increased safety for us and those that we might have pulled over or anybody on the emergency scene. So I think a lot of the kids that come in today probably see this and laugh at it compared to what they see out on the roads today.
It's amazing how streamlined everything is, especially when you're talking about the sirens themselves. I mean, now they're like in the car or on
Absolutely, yeah. The emergency lights now are super thin, which reduces wind noise for us inside the vehicle, helps with gas mileage. The sirens, which you hear, the audio, audible sounds that you hear, are mounted within our grills rather than on top of the vehicles like they did years past. So a lot of technology advancements has made our job a lot more safe and easier.
Sure, the technology, especially whenever you're talking about inside the patrol unit. I mean, you have computers now, whereas here you can come and you can see some of the, it looks like CB radios. You had dispatchers that were connected to that. Talk to me a little bit about what you have to kind of show where we've been and where we are now.
Sure. Well, years ago, our troopers used to take complaints by driving to a specified location. And people would raise a flag if there was a complaint that a trooper needed to come handle. Now, obviously, everything's done by the radio. We have 3 dispatch centers, 1 in each county, and they dispatch the complaint load to our troopers out there. The radio waves are phenomenal to where there's no interference or interruption, and it's really improved public safety within our state. So we're fortunate to have the equipment that we do.
So when you get to some of those calls, sometimes, a lot of the times, there's an element of danger, and you end up, coming across contraband, confiscating contraband, and you have some on display.
Yes, ma'am. We have a few items that would have been taken off of perpetrators in the past, just to kind of showcase some of those dangers that any police officer in the country is faced with on a given day.
Yeah, you have brass knuckles, a really big knife, and a billy club.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's just par for the course in terms of contraband.
Ma'am, the evidence locker in every troop in this state is full of weapons that were taken off of criminals. It's just the nature of kind of what we're faced with.
And just to underline how dangerous a job that you do every day. Now, the Delaware State Police, you guys are self-contained. You have someone that does everything. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the special units. You have the ceremonial unit and you have the special units. What's the difference between the two?
Well, the ceremonial units are special units. They're just kind of a subset. It's funny, when I was in human resources many years ago, in fact, I had a hand in hiring this guy, I used to talk about how we were almost a full service agency. There was 2 things we didn't have back then. That was, we didn't have boats and we didn't have horses. Well, we have boats and we have horses now. So the state police present day has every specialty that any law enforcement agency in the world could have. It's pretty neat. So we're a true full service agency. And our special units primarily are part-time special units. So as I alluded to earlier, Corporal Jewell and I also serve on the Honor Guard. So we have our primary assignments. Mine's at the training academy, his is in human resources. And then when needed, we step into that secondary role. Heck, we've got troopers that are wearing 3 and 4 hats at any given time. So what we're looking to do here in the near future is to showcase not only our special units, to give young people particularly who are looking at us as a career opportunity, the ability to see the variety of job assignment, but also highlight that ceremonial piece, which is near and dear to us because we are the ones that are called upon to honor the fallen if need be.
Now you mentioned showing youngsters, what the path could be for them if they were to join the state police, but there's also just an informational aspect to it. There's so much history behind it, and every year you have a summer camp. Can you talk about that?
Yes, ma'am. It's actually a one-day program. It may be something we're able to expand in the future, but 1 day a year in the summertime, we will bring in a number of young people. Typically, they are related to active or former troopers, but they come in here for a day and they really get to learn about what their moms, dads, grandfathers, grandmothers did and do. And the hope is, again, to just spur a little interest in them because we certainly need young people in our future.
Sure, sure. And I would imagine you also have a car show, and that brings in a lot of people, right?
Absolutely. Different cars from the tri-state area come to the car show that we've hosted here in the past, and we have old antique police cars that come and open the museum up. Anything to draw attention and interest in this profession is always a good thing.
So if somebody wants to get more information on the museum and some of the exhibits, some of the programs, some of the public outreach, because you do public outreach and you are working on some stuff coming up in the future, so how would someone find out what's going on with you guys?
The museum itself has a website, dspmuseum.com. If you want to learn more about the museum and things like that, that'd be the appropriate place to go. It is free to the public once we get over this pandemic, of course. For anyone interested in becoming a trooper, our website is becomeatrooper.com.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. It really has been entertaining and fascinating at the same time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back. For more information on the Delaware State Police Museum, visit dspmuseum.com. That'll do it for this episode of the 302. We're going to leave you with some beautiful scenic shots of the John Dickinson Plantation. Until next time, I'm Jackie Ferris. We'll see you on the 302.